Faster than a speeding bullet.
I ran until my muscles burned and my veins pumped battery acid.
More powerful than a locomotive.
An idea is like a virus. Resilient. Highly contagious.
Able to leap tall buildings in a single bound.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Better Humanology Podcast. Jerred Moon here. And this week, we have Max Shank. Now, he was actually recommended to me that we should interview him from one of our Garage Gym athletes. We have a private Facebook group for Garage Gym Athlete, and they're like, dude, you totally got to link up with Max. You guys will have a great conversation. We absolutely did. It was a lot of fun. We do have a lot of the same ideas on training and being an athlete, so I think you'll really, really enjoy it. Max has a lot of great ideas on not just training and mobility and injury prevention and all sorts of different stuff that we talk about, but also just on being a better human being and getting after it as we both like to do. And if you like to listen to this podcast, I'm sure that you do as well. Now, before you listen to this interview with Max, I want to make one quick announcement, and that is a new podcast is coming. So if you have been around on the email list into 3 Fitness or any of the Facebook groups that we run, you probably know that there's a new podcast coming out, the Garage Gym Athlete Podcast. It's not out yet. We're probably a few weeks away. As long as submitting and everything goes fine, we should get launched. But we've been interviewing athletes and doing a lot of cool different episodes behind the scenes. That's what I've been working on. We're putting a lot of time into it. So it's coming. Nothing for you to do right now. Just have it in the back of your brain. But when we launch, we're going to do a lot of cool stuff. And I will make sure that you know about how to subscribe and that you know about all the cool things we're doing with the launch of this new podcast. So get ready, get excited for that. If you like this podcast, you absolutely will love the Garage Gym Athlete Podcast coming here in a few weeks. All right, guys, I won't ramble on any further. Here is a badass interview with Max Shank. All right, Max, welcome to the Better Humanology Podcast, man. I'm super pumped to have you on today.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm thrilled to be on here.
Yeah, so I want to give you a little backstory before we hop into the challenges. So I run a daily programming site called Garage Gym Athlete. We have a lot of athletes in there, and occasionally they'll chime in and be like, hey, try and get this person on the show, and your name came up in a major way. They're like, you got to talk to Max, man. He'd be great to be on the podcast. You guys are really similar. It'll be really awesome. So I'm pumped to reach out to you and get to chat and have all my athletes hear the conversation that finally went down that they wanted to hear.
Wow, that's great. Who do I thank for all those kind words and recommendations?
Let's see. I think it was a few people.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah. So you got
cool.
Some followers amongst the Garage Gym athletes out there.
Oh, excellent. Well, like I said, I'm thrilled to be on here. Let's talk about how to be muscular ninjas.
Yeah, let's do it, man. All right, so we're gonna get started with some challenges. That's how we normally start every show. So if you could start us off with a fitness challenge.
So here's something that I think everybody will really enjoy, and it's also very telling about what's really going on with your lower body. So the challenge I have for you guys, you can either do this on flat ground or standing perpendicular on a balance beam. So just the ball of your foot and toes are on the top of the balance beam. And the only challenge is you're going to try to lift one leg up. So you're going to be balancing on just one foot on just the ball of the foot. So the heel will be off the ground. And then you're going to close your eyes. And that's basically the whole challenge. If you can take 10 deep breaths in that position, it means that you have really good reflexive stability throughout your entire lower body kinetic chain. And if you want to make it like miserably difficult, you can try to reach down and touch the floor around your foot and then come back up without losing your balance. So that's the challenge for you guys.
All right, so I'm going to try this after we get off the podcast. So it's one leg, 1 foot, the ball of your foot, so heel off the ground.
Heel off the ground, 1 foot balance.
Close your
eyes.
10 deep
breathing.
All right.
Exactly.
All right.
And the nice thing about this challenge, I thought about this a lot. Having you send over those notes ahead of time was super pro and really helpful, because I thought about what could people do with no equipment anywhere, anytime? So it was actually really neat thinking about that. And people are so disconnected from their feet and their lower bodies. I mean, the truth is, like, just the same way that you can strengthen your rotator cuff by improving your grip strength, you can sort of more or less improve your hip-tator cuff by improving your foot strength. So this is really important. I would recommend, if you struggle with this, just start practicing all the time. And then once you get even better, you can start looking at controlling those other 3 limbs while you're standing on that single leg ball of foot balance.
That's awesome. So the main, because I know people are going to do this and they're going to have a challenge. And so you say, if there's a challenge, just basically your benchmark would be how many deep breaths you could take and kind of just try and progress further and further.
That's just a starting point. Close your eyes and take some deep breaths, because the focus should be on not being as tense as possible. You want to be able to have like some sort of regular homeostasis while you're on this. You don't want it to be like a stressful experience.
Right.
And that kind of just proves that you've owned that new position. And then adding the hip hinges in there is a great way to really switch on that posterior chain starting at the toe.
Awesome, man. I love that challenge. And like I said, as soon as we're done recording, I'll be giving it a try.
Sweet. You're going to have to video that for everybody though, right?
I will. Put it on the Instagram.
There you go.
All right, dude. How about a mental toughness challenge?
Stand on the ball of your feet on a balance beam sideways for 5 straight minutes.
Okay.
And hold your arms straight out to your side with your palms facing the walls. So that means you're going to be in wrist extension. Mm-hmm. I think mental toughness challenges, I think, require like some sort of discomfort that will not damage you, and time. So whenever I look at like a mental challenge, because the mental side of training, health, whatever you want to call it, is so huge. And I think people are typically just not patient enough to let time do the work on building that mental toughness. So static holds, I think, are great for mental toughness. Coordination exercises can be good too with a metronome, but I think the mental toughness challenge will be just standing on the balls of your feet on a balance beam, heels up, and then arms straight out to your sides with the wrists in full extension for 5 minutes.
So if we don't have a balance beam, what else could we be using? Like
a small 2x4. You could stand on a book, actually.
Okay.
A book works plenty fine. You can do it on a line too. You can just put like a piece of tape on the floor. But the problem with that is it doesn't keep you as honest.
Yeah.
You're much better off with like a small piece of wood or a book or something like that. You can even use a pair of like 2.5 pound plates or something like that. There are all kinds of options. You can rig something up. Just keep your heels up off the ground and try to have the square inches of support on the ball of your foot be relatively minimal, so you're not putting your whole foot down.
Okay, makes sense. Yeah. All right, man. And how about a book recommendation?
Boy, so I like totally racked my brain. It depends if you want like a training book, a neuroscience book, a business book. What do you think people would benefit from the most? I mean, I've read like a ridiculous amount of books.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the same way. I think I've read a ton of books on training and programming, a lot in self-development world, a lot in the business world. I mean, really, whatever it could be more recent, maybe in just something that's been a little bit impactful for you.
Sure.
Whichever category that is.
Okay, great. One of the books that I thought was great that I read recently was a book called Sapiens. And it's called Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind. And I think just having a deeper understanding of the long road that it took us all to get to this point in time, and kind of like respect history a little bit more, not only like the history of civilization, but also the history of athleticism and movement and hunter-gatherers and social groups. It's a fascinating book. I think that's a wonderful choice because it provides like a foundation for you to read every other book better. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that's a great book. And then professionally, probably The War of Art has been one of the most helpful ones that I've read.
That's a great book. And, Sapiens has been recommended to me before. And so actually, I don't even know if it was on the podcast. I always ask people for a book recommendation. I don't care who they are, where we're at. So now I think this is like my 5th time. So that means it moves all the way to the top of my queue. So that's the next book on the reading list for me.
That's a good litmus test for books.
Yeah.
To wait until a bunch of people recommend it and then go, okay, this is serious.
Yeah, because I'm always reading something, but sometimes I just I get through a book and I'm like, that wasn't good. That was a waste of my time. But if some 2, 3, 4 people that you respect all said, hey, read this book, you're like, okay, that one's going to be good,
Oh, totally. Yeah, I'll stop short if a book sucks. But the nice thing about books is even if they're terrible, you still learn something from it.
Oh yeah.
Because if you say, okay, this is definitely a terrible book, you're going to turn around and have confirmed something that you already thought just a little bit stronger. So it's going to give you some conviction. So I think you get everything out of every book. You get something out of every book you've read, even if it's not exactly what you were hoping for at the time.
Yeah, I think you'll always learn something, because I typically try and force myself through those books anyway, and
right.
Just to see, give the author a fair shot, all the way through.
That's not a bad tactic.
And
that's not a bad tactic. I sometimes do that myself.
Try and pick up what I can. All right, man. So awesome book recommendations. Not to gloss over, you said The War of Art.
Yeah.
By Stephen Pressfield.
Both very good. I believe that is correct.
Yeah. And not The Art of War by Sun Tzu.
Well, here's the thing. I absolutely adore that book too. Maybe even more, but it's, there are too many. So that they're both great.
Yeah, I think I just want to make sure I was talking about the right one.
Yeah, you're talking about the right one, The War of Art, which is
all about
really
resistance
and overcoming your creative hurdles, and it's so good for people to embrace their creativity, because even if you're in a job that from the outside looking in seems kind of mundane, there's always a way that you can really use your creativity to enhance whatever you're doing professionally or personally.
I agree, man. I think I've read that book a while back, and it was it's a short read for anyone out there who wants to tackle it. It's a short read, and you can get through it pretty fast, but it's great just to have. Mm-hmm. I think putting a name, calling it resistance, whatever you want to call it, procrastination, and all.
Exactly.
Just having a name, and Stephen Pressfield talking about it like it's an actual thing or being, kind of working against you when you're trying to achieve something is,
right.
I think, hugely beneficial.
The resistance.
All right, man.
Yeah, great.
Let's get to who you are and your background and what you do, all that good stuff. If you could take me back, I don't know, as far as you want, really. Some people start at birth, some people start at their training history, but I am most interested as you as a whole person, and to include your training. So wherever you want to start, man.
Oh boy, okay. My story starts. I'll probably just say I entered the workforce when I was 12 years old.
Okay.
And I did landscaping, and I ended up working for a general contractor and learned all these odd jobs, and went to work while I went to school all the way through. Eventually dropped out of college with 3 classes to go before I could have graduated with a double major in economics and Spanish. And I say maybe I'll go back and I'll finish up so I can sell burritos at fair market value. But I think for the time being, I'm very happy with the fitness thing. Athletically, I've had basically every injury you could possibly imagine. I've broken toes, fingers, thumbs, wrists, knees, hips, torn labrums, rotator cuff, herniated disc. I've literally damaged everything that you could damage on a human body. And this is a really important thing to remember for the evolution of me as a coach. Because I remember first starting out, I did a bodybuilding phase. I went and got a job as a personal trainer. It was so funny. I went and got a job as a personal trainer with no experience, no certifications, and I had never even lifted weights. I was an adult man who could do 0 pull-ups and not touch my toes, and my body was pretty battered from playing high-level competitive soccer. So I could run fast, do 0 pull-ups, not touch my toes. And that was about 19 or so.
So you looked fit. Is that why they hired you?
No, it's funny you say it. The only reason they hired me was actually because I was the only one who showed up wearing a tie, a button-down shirt, slacks, and a belt. Everybody else showed up wearing like sweatpants and tank tops. So he thought I would be the most professional. And even though I didn't have any experience, he accepted me to work there. So I went to school while I was training, learned a little bit about training, did CrossFit, did bodybuilding, powerlifting, Olympic lifting. I bounced around. I tried it all. I got into kettlebells, worked my way up to the point where I was actually, and I still am, teaching kettlebell certifications to other coaches. I moved up really fast. I got really all into kettlebells. And let's see, in 2009, I opened my own gym called Ambition Athletics in Encinitas, California, which is like North County, San Diego. It's a little beach town. And that's still going really strong. We're over 8 years into the business there. So all that is great. My body was like a physical wreck just a few years ago. I was, focused on how many pounds I could lift on the barbell, how many of a certain exercise I can do. And everything was very results oriented. And it really just beat me down. And, much to my chagrin, all of these programs I would follow and all of these trainers I would follow, the type of training that they promoted actually made me less athletic. Like I couldn't run as fast. I had like more aches and pains. My back was sore. I actually had back pain so bad at one point that I could not walk for like an entire week. It was really pretty gnarly. And basically that, and watching so many people around me suffer through the same things, trying to lift more pounds on the bar. I mean, what the hell is a pound anyway? A pound is this like artificial number that we all made up. And, a surefire way to happiness is to always be comparing yourself to others, right?
Oh yeah, that's like the equation for happiness: comparison.
Yeah, happiness. Yeah. Compare yourself to others. So that's what got me into some more mobility training and starting to explore more into things like intrinsic foot strength and rotator cuff function, and the relationship between adjacent healthy joints and how everything can really be so impactful in the body. And then, also how the mental side of things makes such an impact. Like when you start talking about something like pain, and God, like so many Americans are in pain. And the problem is like the majority of people with some sort of physical pain assume they're going to have it forever. They assume that these chronic problems are going to always exist. So the mental side is just as important, if not more important, than the physical side of things. Because you probably know that, someone could be having shoulder pain because their core is weak. It could be because their scapula doesn't move very well. It could be because they have a weak or inactive rotator cuff. It could be that they have a really stiff neck. Or it could be that they hate their wife. I don't know. Like there are so many things that could be contributing to someone's like painful shoulder, including what's going on with them psychologically and what's going on with them in their life. So, I mean, you really have to look at the big picture and, just perusing a little bit what you're about. I was pleased to find that you're very switched on to the reality that the mind and body are one and not separate.
Oh yeah. And that's what you just described is probably one of my biggest frustrations, I guess, easiest way to put it, just because it happens. And I'm not just talking with athletes, it happens with my friends, my family members. They get some sort of issue and maybe it's in the lower back or shoulder or something, and it probably wasn't even from fitness. They just happened to do something, and it's kind of that fixed mindset versus growth mindset mentality. They have that fixed mindset that you're talking about, where they're like, well, that's just my back problem now, and
that's the worst.
I'm gonna have this back problem forever. There's nothing really you can do about it, and man, even if that's true, like if you're in a really bad situation and like there's, you had expert after expert, everyone telling you it's not going to work out, for you to just not try, it just baffles me. Because if I had
that's the only way you can fail.
Yeah,
is but to stop trying.
Yeah, because if I had some sort of issue like that, that would just be what I do. I'm like, okay, today devoting an hour towards making this better. It might work, it might not, but I'm at least doing this today, and I'll try it again tomorrow and the next day, and just keep going after it.
Totally. Oh man.
So
yeah, I mean, look at some of the statistics. Like, it's absolutely outrageous. Like in terms of pain, because, for example, like most people over 50 have a rotator cuff tear, not just a partial tear, a full tear. But only a small percentage of people over 50 experience pain. So I think the overarching problem is this victim mentality where you own the pain. Like you said, it's my back pain. I mean, that is the worst thing you can say. Another book I am reading right now, almost done with it. It's called The Brain's Way of Healing. It's by a neuroscientist named Norman Doidge, who wrote The Brain That Changes Itself. And they talk about how visualization exercises have been absolutely wildly effective in treating pain. Because the problem is not that you have a torn rotator cuff. I mean, yeah, we wish your rotator cuff wasn't torn, but you're a well-designed animal. You are not made of glass. The answer to your problem is to not roll over and quit. The answer to your problem, if anything, is more movement. I went through a similar situation. I went to the doctor. I had a really bad knee trauma. I got kicked in the knee, my leg hyperextended backwards. Oh, by the way, like, part of the reason I've broken so much shit is that I did Muay Thai competitively for years. I did MMA competitively for years. I've been doing jiu-jitsu off and on since about 2008. And I play basically every sport that I can possibly play because, being alive and moving around is fun. But I got this bone bruise on my knee. So we got like X-ray, MRI, all that stuff. And I don't know if you know, but a bone bruise is one of those things that can take either 2 weeks to heal or it can take about 2 years to heal. It's very variable depending on the severity. And I had a very severe bone bruise on the knee, where the two bones like basically slammed together while my knee got kicked backwards. And, go to the doctor, and the doctor's like, oh, well, the only thing you can do is rest it. And I got to tell you, it got way worse by resting it. I rested it. I kept resting it. It just got worse and worse and worse. So finally I said, fuck this. I am going to start doing like leg raises and assisted squats. And I'm going to basically circle around the painful movements. So basically, if you have a movement that's painful, I want you to tease that painful range of motion, but don't go into pain. You never want to do anything that's actually painful. But as soon as I started doing like hundreds of like assisted, very easy squats and leg raises, my knee started getting better within days, and it got really good within a couple weeks. And it's just one of those things where no matter what the problem you're having is, whether it's like a physical impediment or pain or something like that, or a psychological problem, action is always the solution, not inaction.
So this leads me to another question, because I feel like we do have similar views on mindset and movement. And I have a very similar example. I hurt my my shoulder. So the last couple months of my life have been crazy because we moved. I moved my entire family out here to North Carolina, which involved that's just a shit show in and of itself, moving.
Yeah.
And so, but basically, I didn't have my traditional gym to work out with, and I was like, that's fine. I'll just be doing a lot of body weight stuff during this time frame and running and all that. But I had kind of tweaked my shoulder before all of that happened, and I was doing a lot less stuff for it. Basically what you're saying, I just kind of stopped moving as much, and especially those movements, and my shoulder started hurting. Like I felt like I was like almost back to normal, like I was good to go. And then I started moving it less and doing less activity overall, and my shoulders started to hurt again. I think there's a big factor in that. But that brings me back to my question, kind of this mindset to movement conversation we've been having. It's almost the chicken, which came first, the chicken or the egg? In your opinion, which one do you think truly helps? Because if we go back to your example of your movement, do you think it was your mindset that your movement was that helped, or you think it's the movement that helped the injury?
I like to think of it as a feedback loop within one organism rather than two discrete areas.
Okay.
So like the brain and the body are just two parts of Max or two parts of Jerred, and they communicate with each other. And the better you can communicate, both like verbally, psychologically, and movement wise, which is just you communicating with your environment, whether that's the ground or a set of gymnastics rings or wrestling another person. It all starts in the brain. Some people would tell you that it all starts in the heart. I'm convinced that they all play an important role, and I don't think that you can prioritize one or the other. However, pretty much everything I've done in the last 5 or 6 years has been done with neuroscience as like the top of the hierarchy.
Okay.
So I think, I think it's the mind first. Really, it's like an attitude, right?
Yeah.
And then after that, it's breathing, vision, vestibular function, and then movement comes after that.
Okay. And I kind of, I have a similar view. And that's the reason I was asking is I just want to get your personal take on the mindset stuff, because there's just been so many. I've had people on the podcast recently, Dr. Brian Walsh, and then we even talked about the book, The Power of the Subconscious Mind by Joseph Murray. And he was mentioning studies where, women who had basically their entire hormonal function had shut down, and they put them through some sort of visualization exercises, and like 100%, they all got better and their hormones went back to normal just through the power of their mind. So I just find it, anyone who's working in this field, like yourself, I'd like to just get your opinion. And I think it's cool that you put mindset first, and then you kind of have that order there.
Oh yeah. I mean, if anybody spends any time at all reading just a little bit of the crazy shit that they talk about in neuroscience, where people like rewire their brains to do things that they don't even have the equipment for. Like this woman had like a genetic disorder, so she didn't have an inner ear, which is supposed to help her with balance. And they helped her brain find a way to use different parts of her body to make that work. Like, it's just fascinating.
That's insane.
So neuroscience is like, if you want to get really excited and, learn about how important how you think and move and how interrelated they are is, just do a little neuroscience research. And a couple good books to start you off are The Brain That Changes Itself, which is by Norman Doidge. And then another great one is What to Say When You Talk to Yourself by a guy named Shad Helmstetter. And I think those are fantastic.
Is the second one there more about like self-talk? And
yes,
like
definitely.
Okay, great. Yeah, that's awesome. I was actually going to ask for some recommendations because I know there are a lot of athletes out there, and I definitely went down this path, was more the brute strength mentality coming up into the world. And I honestly think it was entrepreneurship that changed me at first through the mindset. And then I just started to relate it all back to fitness and health. But I used to just be like, you don't need any of that mindset crap. The barbell is the barbell, and running fast is running fast. And man, was I wrong? Like way off. But happy to admit it now because we live in a whole world.
Oh, I mean, I felt exactly the same way when I was, beating my head against a wall trying to push up my deadlift when I didn't know how to move my core or my feet very well anymore. Like, it's crazy.
And so
what we focus on.
Going from mindset to movement, you focus a lot on, like you were saying, you had all of these injuries. You basically injured everything. And that kind of led you into how to move better. Is that kind of the progression there?
That's 100% it. I mean, it was, I used to be like kind of a negative Nancy about the whole thing. I kept going like, God, like, why the fuck am I like getting injured so much? This is so unfair. But, I've dedicated, let's see, I just turned 30. I've dedicated the last 12 years to understanding everything I possibly can about fitness. So the laundry list of traumas that I've encountered is actually like a great gift because it's allowed me to help so many people all over the world with my courses and books.
And hopefully I'm not jumping too far ahead, but where do kettlebells fit into this, I guess, recovery and injury prevention? And is that what you use them for? Or, is that what you teach? Where do kettlebells come into play?
So kettlebells are a tool in the workshop, basically. I think they're awesome. I think they're reasonably inexpensive. They'll last forever. They take up almost no space, and they allow you a very ergonomic extension of your body with load, which is really all you're looking for out of a piece of equipment. I think kettlebells are great. I think they can be used for building explosive power. I think they can be used for building endurance, certainly muscular endurance and power endurance. I think in terms of teaching people how to do a good deadlift, and the truth is a set of gymnastics rings and a kettlebell is probably enough for anyone to stay in shape forever and have fun while doing it. Because as you get to know any piece of equipment better, you just learn what wonderful possibilities they all have. And what I would recommend to anybody is try kettlebells out for just a month and just use the kettlebell and see how creatively you can weave it into what you're currently doing.
And what else do you have people work on? If they are, let's say someone comes to you, they're pretty good mindset, but they are kind of torn up like you. Where do you start with somebody? Or like you were, should I say? Like a lot of injuries, but they have like an athletic background. Really, I'm probably describing a lot of people listening to the podcast.
Most people, yeah. If I'm going to work with most people and they have a good mindset already, which is wonderful, we're gonna get right to work, getting them up on their feet, balancing on one leg, hopping on a balance beam. We're gonna wake up their kinetic chains from the ground up. In some cases, we're also going to really need to get people on the ground and teach them how to have a better relationship with the ground. Fear of falling is something that is going to grip most people at some point in their lives. The trick is you just want that to hopefully happen never, but if it's going to happen, you want it to happen when you're like nearly dead anyway, because life's not very fun when you're constantly worried about falling. So I think improving the relationship with the ground, which means how you can move around while you're on the ground, like rolling around. I want them to balance on one leg. I want them to balance on a balance beam, and I want to get them hanging and do just some of those basic things. So we get them to roll around, crawl, hang, balance, and then start introducing some gait patterns again once we have everything all nice and dialed. That's a really good way to start. That's where I would start with just about anybody.
And what would be the progression after that? What if someone was looking to, get a little bit stronger? What direction do you normally have people go from there?
Sure. So, I mean, I have it set up pretty specifically. So, like, my 5-minute flow product is kind of like laying a foundation of just moving your body around. And then in ultimate athleticism, which is the natural progression, that's where we start using some low level but very challenging gymnastic skills. The reason I say low level is for a gymnast, they are considered low level. But for the average person, they're extremely challenging, but very doable with practice. Like, they don't require you do like a triple backflip or anything like that. They simply require you to learn how to do these movements progressively over the long term. Like the front lever, the skin the cat, the L-sit to handstand. These are all things that men and women can achieve at pretty much any age if they're willing to do the work and lay a solid foundation. And the nice thing about these movements is that they're multi-planar strength exercises. And what that means is you're running through the horizontal plane and the vertical plane and every plane in between. So whereas a push-up is horizontal and an overhead press would be vertical, you're actually hitting all the vectors in between. And by transferring from one plane to the next while maintaining muscular tension, as well as core engagement from the gymnastic skills and the leverage component, that is going to give you by far the most well-rounded strength that's going to have the best carryover to more stuff. So the economist in me can't get away from the allure of efficiency. So I want to see what I can do with as little time investment as possible. But then once I figure out what the most efficient thing is, I still want to do a lot of it because it's fun. And that's the secret.
And what do you use for conditioning? Because, kettlebell conditioned.
Let's see. For conditioning, it really depends. So conditioning, in my opinion, needs to either be very specific or very general. And the reason for that has to do with the SAID principle. Are you familiar?
I'm not.
So the SAID principle is specific adaptation to imposed demand. It's basically one of the foundational things from neuroscience and neuroplasticity, more importantly, which is the brain's ability to interpret what you're doing and adapt you accordingly. So if you sit in a chair all day, it makes you better at sitting in a chair. If you lift weights all day, it makes you better at lifting weights all day. So I think that's really important to consider when you're doing anything, but specifically endurance. So like Lance Armstrong is the example I always give people. He was the pinnacle of endurance athletes for cycling. However, when he ran a marathon, he didn't even really place. And the reason for that is even though he had ridiculous muscle endurance, a resting heart rate of like 4, and the lung capacity of a blue whale, he wasn't good at the skill of running with the specific endurance required for it. And I would imagine, I don't think we'd ever see this, if Michael Phelps, the greatest Olympian who ever lived, according to the amount of medals he's won in swimming, if he tried to run a marathon, not only do I think he would record a horrible time, but I think the way he runs would probably look pretty hilarious.
Yeah.
So when it comes to endurance, it's best if it just brings you closer to one of your goals. Because true endurance, like, really making your heart healthier, you're probably best off doing something for like a while. Like you're best off to go play tennis with a friend or go play a game of pickup basketball or go do something that you look forward to. Because what is not really going to work for most people is to hop on the treadmill for an hour. Now, if that's your mentality and you can hang with that and you want to hop on the bike and just do the exercise bike for an hour and you like that because of the mental break it gives you, please do. Please continue to do so. But what I like to have people do, which is a little bit more sustainable, which is ridiculously important, is to go do something that is fun, safe, and makes you sweat.
All right.
And if you have a specific goal, like, oh, I want to build a better butt, well, maybe you do kettlebell swings for conditioning or sprints. Or if you I want to run a triathlon, then maybe your endurance training should include running, biking, and swimming, because the SAID principle, right? Your body adapts specifically to whatever task you give it. So if you want to really get good at something, you got to do that specific thing.
Yeah, and that reminds me a lot of the same principle in it's the book Science and Practice of Strength. Yeah, Science and Practice of Strength, I believe is the title. But he talks about kind of the four similar: stimulus, accommodation, specificity, and then individualization, which is more for like high level athletes. But he's relating it to strength programs. But he's also talking about why whenever you see some professional athlete come out with they're the program, or you're trying to mimic what they're doing and all this stuff, is not going to work for you. Because they on that continuum I just said, they're all the way over to basically individualization. And so you're kind of taking people through stimulus, accommodation, and then if they need specificity, then go there. But if not, then they can just stay in the stimulus and accommodation cycle and keep new stimulus, new accommodation, which is fitness. It improves your physical fitness over time. So that's kind of your challenge to people when you're training.
Totally. Well, and I think people worry way too much about what they're going to do for endurance instead of just worrying about showing up for 10 years. Mm-hmm. Because that's why I always recommend that people just do something that they find fun. Grab a heart rate monitor if you want and wear it. I did for tennis. I did for wakeboarding. I did for jiu-jitsu. So I wore this heart rate monitor for like a couple months. And I found out that most of these things that I like to do that feel really hard actually are really hard,
right?
And make my heart rate go up. So it's like, I am not one of those people who likes to measure everything from a fitness standpoint. I mean, I'm just an animal. I want to go out and play with weights sometimes. I want to climb on stuff. I want to jump. I want to run fast. I want to draw shapes with weights kind of thing. And I think people worry way too much about exactly what their VO2 max is when they're not even competing at anything. If you're not getting paid, you have this wonderful amateur's advantage where you don't have to worry if you're good at shit. You can just go try stuff and have fun and enjoy the process, which is really how you win the game of fitness anyway, is just enjoying that process.
And so if someone wanted to be just in the best general physical preparedness, or just prepared to take on activity, what do you think that they should be doing?
That's exactly why I wrote Ultimate Athleticism, because the goal with that book is to get you strong and athletic enough. And it's a video series too. There's a whole bunch of instructional videos that teach you how to do all the movements. The whole purpose of that is to give you the foundation that will have the best carryover to more things. So my thesis is essentially that if you focus on some of these multiplanar strength movements, and if you focus on deadlifts, and you focus on the airborne lunge, and you focus on these specific accessory movements and jumping and landing and sprinting and all this, that will give you the best foundation to do anything else. So my goal is, if you want to try jiu-jitsu or kickboxing or tennis or stand-up paddleboarding or surfing or snowboarding or skiing or whatever, I want you to be able to do that with completely no fear, and I want you to be athletic enough that it'll be fun. So that's really my best recommendation.
All right, and I'm seeing why people thought that you and I should talk. I think we do have very similar ideas there, because that's I talk about all the time how just that fear in general. If I were to ask 9 out of 10 people right now to just, hey, you can warm up a little bit if you want, but I want you to run at top speed for 100, 400 meters as fast as you can. if you ask, I'm sure if I asked you to do that, or if I were to do that, or if I were to ask, a more conditioned athlete to do that, they'd be like, okay, yeah, I'll probably run it about this amount of time and whatever. It'll be kind of difficult, but no big deal. But a majority of people, there'll be a lot of fear and anxiety surrounding that. Not exactly sure what will happen. Maybe pulling a hamstring, maybe throwing up after a 400-meter run. And I don't think that that's any place a human being should be. That fear and anxiety of fitness or your performance, and in what case that it needs to be handled.
I absolutely could not agree more. I feel like my purpose in life is to help people achieve what I call physical freedom. Because I feel like people are almost like trapped, like prisoners in their own bodies, because they're just so deconditioned due to lack of use. It's actually part of the reason I organized my retreat, is to really go deep on like the mental and physical side of what physical freedom means to me. And I remember I had this experience at the airport, and it left such a strong impression on me. I was at LAX, and I don't know if you've ever flown through LAX International Terminal. It's big. Yeah. Like there's a lot of walking that you probably need to do. And I saw this family there, and it was a dad, a mom, 2 kids, and the dad and the 2 kids are, I would say, of a healthy weight, and I would say the woman was of more or less an unhealthy weight. And they were running to catch their plane. And the woman had to stop running and had to start walking. And they missed their flight. And I thought, what could possibly make a person feel more powerless than to have every desire? Because they all want to get on that plane. You have every desire to get on that plane, and you just don't have the basic physical capacity to run a little bit. And that's really, it's made me take a good, hard look at not only the way people are on the broad population, but also the way people are trained by personal trainers. I've taught over 150 courses to personal trainers, and I'm shocked at what a lot of people are doing with the supposed intent of becoming more fit and more healthy. Like, I see a lot of muscle pumping, and I see a lot of heavy weight movement, and I'm all about that. Like, I love deadlifts. I think they're awesome. I do heavy, but I just wonder why we sacrifice so much basic athletic ability, like rhythm and coordination and springiness and explosiveness and like suppleness in your joints, just to lift a few more pounds on the bar. Like it really, I really don't quite get it.
No, yeah, I think I'm at a loss, and I think people think I'm picking on them, but I'm not trying to. But I always point to powerlifters because I don't understand powerlifters at all. I understand you want to compete. There are a lot of sports out there that at the highest level are unhealthy because of what you're doing to your body. That's a lot of
almost all of them.
Yeah, probably
almost
all sports. To include the CrossFit Games athletes, because we haven't even seen the full life of a 60 or 70-year-old person who competed in the CrossFit Games for 5 to 10 years or something like that. But where I was going with that was powerlifters. I don't understand it. You've basically wrecked your metabolic system trying to gain weight by force feeding yourself because mass moves mass, which so you got to gain more weight to lift more weight on the bar, which I get that. So now you're just force feeding yourself, and then maybe in a meet you place first or second place. I don't know. I just don't. But you can't do a pull up. You can't run to the end of the street. You can't tie your shoes. You can't do anything. But you're strong. Right. It just stuff like that blows my mind.
Totally. And actually, here's how, because I've thought about what you just said a lot. And here's how I feel about it. Number one, and I always remind myself of this on almost a daily basis, people are very different.
Right.
People are extremely different. They're going to like really different things. Like I really, I'm just not a huge fan of, what am I not a huge fan of anymore? I'm pretty good with most things. I don't love like steamed Brussels sprouts. I'm not a huge fan. Some people love them. I don't love them. Some people are so allergic to peanuts that if they see a peanut, they'll die. Some people are kind of allergic to peanuts, so if they eat peanut butter, they'll feel a little puffy. So people are just so monumentally different, and I couldn't possibly understand why anyone would do anything. So if someone really loves powerlifting and they're willing to make the sacrifice to lift tons of weight and move worse, go do your thing. That's fine. What I can't stand and what drives me absolutely up the fucking wall is when personal trainers and coaches impose and force their goals on their clients, and they apply something like a powerlifting program to someone who just wants to get healthier. And that's where I draw the line. I don't have a problem if you want to power lift. I love lifting heavy weights too. I'm right there with you. I'm going to get excited when you pull 500 pounds, but please don't make people worse by making them do your goals if you're a coach.
Yeah, I couldn't. I think that's where this kind of powerlifting thing started with me. I actually had a buddy who was he's not looking to compete necessarily in powerlifting, but he hired a powerlifting coach because he's a smart guy and he wants to get good at something. So he hired a coach, and
totally.
They got to. I mean, they weren't working together for very long, and they hit a quote unquote plateau. And I was like, yeah, so what's your coach doing for your plateau? What's he telling you? What's he walking you through? And he's like, well, he says I need to gain about 15 more pounds. And I was like,
Right.
Well, I mean, I don't like, I haven't been in your training. Maybe there's some other programming things that could be done, but I don't know, since you don't want to compete and you're just like, you're family man. I don't know if gaining 15 pounds is the answer. But
right.
That's neither here nor there. I won't go down that.
It all comes down to, is the juice worth the squeeze?
Right.
And the thing is, if you're going to do anything that is weird for a human, if you're going to do a weird human thing, like walking around is not a weird human thing. Just do that. Squatting is not a weird human thing. Putting a house on your back and bending your knees just below parallel is a weird human thing. So if you're going to do a weird human thing, just be aware of the costs and benefits to you. Because here's the thing. I know people who don't give a fuck that they wrecked their knees because they set world records. And I'm like, hey man, that's great. You and I are different, and you're happy with the trade. I don't want to tell you how to live your life, but I think if you're going to do weird human stuff, try to educate yourself on what the real costs and benefits are.
Right. Yeah, don't just blindly listen to a coach because they're an expert.
Right.
Or
yeah.
Are you throwing knives by chance?
Axes.
Axes.
Is
Okay.
that too loud?
No, it's fine. I was trying to think of what it was. I was like, it's not a plate, not a kitchen. Like, what? He's got to be throwing some sort of weapon.
If it's too loud, I can stop. I'm just I don't know. I have a pretty awesome setup in my backyard, and it's very meditative.
Dude, that's what I actually on my list of things to talk to you about, because we have a lot of, like I said, garage gym athletes all around the world who, listen to this podcast and are part of what we're doing at Into 3 Fitness, and doing some research, getting to know who you were and what you're about before this episode. I was checking out your YouTube videos and your website and everything, and I saw a lot of your videos. I'm guessing that's your backyard.
Yep.
And man, that looks like a pretty sweet setup. So what do you have going on back there?
Dude, Jerred, the truth is I have it all back here. Like, I set myself up so nice. And I used to kind of be weirdly ashamed of my success. But the truth is, I grew up with nothing. Like, I was dead broke when I was 18 years old. But I have a sauna back here. I have a jacuzzi. I have like a full playground with parallel bars and monkey bars and stall bars and rings. I have heavy sandbags. I have a punching bag. I mean, I have everything you could possibly want back here. A giant play structure with gym, rings, and stall bars and monkey bars, and a throwing axe area. I mean, it's a great setup, and I try to be outside as much as humanly possible.
Yeah, it's nice living in San Diego, right?
Oh yeah, that is a big benefit of living out here.
Yeah, I think I watched one of your videos, and I don't know if you recorded it recently, but you uploaded it recently. it's November, and I'm like, I think you're like, yeah, you're walking around your backyard with your shirt off. I'm like, that's nice.
Yep.
That's California right there.
I think it's probably like 67 or 68 degrees today. That's why I'm outside while we're doing this. It's just so nice.
Yeah, it sounds awesome. Like I said, I have Joe, one of our coaches, just moved out to San Diego. He's already like switching. He's like, I got down to 55 today, and I put on the heater on my steering wheel or something like that.
That's so great. I used my heated steering wheel this morning because I was playing paddleball with a client of mine. Actually, it's a good little story. This guy that I work with, Rob, he's 69 years old, and he hadn't run for 25 years. And came to see me for some personal training, told me he blew out his Achilles, blew out his knee, blew out his back. He's like, I just want to like not die right away. Like he had pretty much already given up. And just like I was telling you, we built up some intrinsic foot and ankle strength. We improved his grip strength, his coordination, his balance, core strength, all this stuff. And now he and I play paddleball, which is on a racquetball court with these old wooden paddles, every Wednesday, and he runs around like an absolute monster. So I wanted to make sure I was nice and warm for our game by doing the heated steering wheel before.
That's awesome. All right, dude. Let's hop to the quick fire questions of the show. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. What's the hardest workout you've ever done?
The hardest workout I've ever done?
Yes.
It was probably some CrossFit workout I did like years ago. It was 5 minutes of squats. It was at a competition. And I had stopped doing CrossFit at the time, I think. It was 5 minutes of body weight squats, 4 minutes of box jumps, 3 minutes of jumping lunges, 2 minutes of kettlebell swings, and 1 minute of double unders, I think, all in a row.
Wow.
It was
that.
It was so I did
starting with those squats
in the first 5
really
minutes.
Brutal.
I did 275 squats.
Yeah, I was about to say the squats would get really brutal because you're fresh too, you know.
Yeah, so I did 275, which I think, I mean, it's like I don't know. It's something kind of outrageous because 5 minutes is what, like 300 seconds. So it was almost one every second for the entire duration. So the funny thing is when it came to the box jumps, I did 0. So I did 275 squats. And then it goes, the 5 minutes is up, it goes straight, the clock starts for 4 minutes of box jumps, right? And I go to like jump up on the box and both of my knees buckle. And I put my hands on the ground like, oh, that was scary. So I wait for a minute, shake it loose. I go to try again, same thing happens. As soon as I try to jump, my legs buckle. So what I did is I sat on the box for 4 minutes.
Nice.
My leg, I mean, I just totally blew my wad on the squats. And I ended up still winning the competition because I did a ton of jumping lunges and double unders and kettlebell swings afterward. And I had built up such a massive lead on the squats. But that was like probably one of the hardest things I've ever done. It was just so brutally, it was just so much volume. Like my legs were completely dead.
Yeah, that one sounds nasty. Those squats, especially, starting off with that.
Well, we could design a harder workout right now, you and I. Really, like a hard workout is so easy. Here's what you do. You put on a 20-pound weight vest and you do 40 minutes of consecutive burpees. And that would probably be the hardest workout you've ever done.
Yeah, you could just say burpees with any triple digit or get into a 4-digit number, 1,000 burpees for time, and yeah, you're done.
And actually, the more monotonous it is, the more of a mental challenge it is, right? So another mental challenge I really like is, just pick up a sandbag and don't put it down for 10 minutes.
Yeah, that's a great one. One of my favorite mental toughness workouts or challenges for people is typically heavy load, long distance, and it doesn't have to be super heavy. Just like get a sandbag, walk a mile, walk 5 miles.
I'm so with you, man.
Yeah,
I'm totally with you. Yeah, and stuff like that. We're geared for that. Like there's like a primal desire for tasks like that. Like we like that stuff.
Just going back to mental toughness challenges, if I were to tell someone, even if I scaled the weight, if I said, hey, do max thrusters, just as many thrusters as you can do until you reach muscle failure, it's going to be pretty quick.
Totally.
It's not going to last for very long. And you're gonna quit because you actually get to muscle failure. You can't go anymore. When you just have like a 20 or 30 pound sandbag, and I'm telling you to carry it as far as you can.
You maybe can't. Yeah.
Yeah. There's like,
with that you
what?
can't.
Yeah. What actually stops you? Like, are you quitting right now, or do you have an actual reason to be stopping? It gets really interesting.
Man, I'm really loving talking to you because I feel like we're so on the same page. I mean, that's kind of like the same reason that for the mental toughness challenge I gave you at the beginning, that I wanted people to just stand on the balls of their feet and hold their arms out, because it's not going to be your muscles that stop you. You're strong enough to hold your arms up.
Right. It's a mind fuck.
Yeah, exactly. It's a total mind fuck. Like your shoulders will be screaming, and actually the top of your forearms are going to be screaming too, because you're going to try to hold your wrists into extension for 5 straight minutes. Those extensor muscles on the top of your forearm are going to be on such fire. You are going to want so desperately to drop your hands down. And so it's really going to tell you a lot about yourself.
I love that. All right. So in that fashion, the next question on the quick fire list is, in your opinion, what's the best activity for building mental toughness?
Maybe music.
Learning music?
Yeah, maybe learning music.
Man, I could see that being a huge mental toughness challenge for me, because I'm not gifted in that realm at all, but I know I could learn it.
Man, Jerred, I got to tell you. So I never had played a musical instrument until 2.5 years ago. And now I have like 14 instruments in my house.
Nice.
I think music is like this. So there's this other book called The Quadrivium. It's 4 of the 7 original liberal arts. It's numbers, geometry, music, and astronomy. And the reason it's those 4 specifically is that numbers are, arithmetic. That's just numbers. Geometry is numbers in space. Music is numbers in time. And astronomy is numbers in space and time. So this is from like the ancient Greeks, right? In this book called the Quadrivium. So I have noticed that is absolutely correct. Music is essentially just numbers in time. So it's pattern recognition. It's extremely good for developing your brain, not just making you tougher, but also developing it. The mental toughness comes in when you recognize that absolutely anybody on the planet could learn to play a song on the piano, or even learn a little bit more about rhythm and drumming. And it would teach them a lot about speed and time and coordination and rhythm, which are extremely important athletic qualities that you really don't see people cultivate. So I think that is huge. And then, real mental toughness is like, do you have the wherewithal to stick with it to learn a whole song? Because it's not like a complicated task. You know what I mean? You're hitting pretty large keys on a piano. Piano is just a good example because you don't have the excuse that some people make when they first start learning guitar that it hurts their fingers. But anybody can learn a song on the piano. It's just you have to put in the time. Just like martial arts, you won't be able to play a song by accident just because you picked up the instrument. So I think that's awesome. That's what I would suggest to absolutely anybody.
Well, I think you've convinced me, because I'm all for challenges and taking things on, but if I don't have a decent why behind it, I won't end up doing anything. And now that you just translated that into mental toughness and athletic ability, I think I will try and learn an instrument soon, in the near future.
Oh, and it'll just make you smarter too. I mean, think about it. Your brain, part of it is designed for like things like pattern recognition, right? So if you can start memorizing patterns and coordinating them with your hands, which of course require the most real estate in your brain, hands are massively important. I think, anybody would be very well served to even just spend 5 or 10 minutes a day on music.
I think that's awesome and very unique and great answer. All right. If you could only have one piece of equipment to train with for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Oh boy. Can I have like a partner? That would probably be the best piece of equipment, is another person.
Yeah. So you choose another human being. I love that.
that would be by far the best, because it's basically exponentially more stuff you can do when you add another basically chaotic animal into the mix. Like, you can do a ton of stuff on gymnastics rings, and that probably deserves like some sort of runner-up title.
Like a notable mention there. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Honorable mention, gymnastics rings. But like, if you can have another person, you can create all kinds of odd resistances, and more importantly, reaction requires an action that is not caused by you. You can't react very well to something that you did. I mean, you can kind of like, hit a tennis ball against a wall and it might bounce in different ways off your knuckle and you're sort of reacting to it. But another person thinking how they can either help you or, beat you at some game is a totally different ballpark.
Well, I think, I don't know how many episodes we've done now, like well over 100. You just won that answer, in my opinion.
Oh, hell yeah. Oh, man.
It's not technically a piece of equipment, but the whole idea behind it is genius. I love that answer a lot. Yeah, that's great.
Oh, thanks, man. Appreciate that. I've thought about that question a lot.
All right. So the question of the show, what is the best advice you have for becoming a better human? And this is 100% open-ended.
Best advice for becoming a better human?
Yes.
I may have already given it to you in the beginning when I said people are different. And it's 3 little words. And, here's the thing. If you have anything you want to really remember that's important for you, because we always think of stuff like this, right? Where it's like, oh, yeah, I really want to remember to have a positive attitude. I really want to remember to breathe and communicate. And I want to remember these things. But it needs to be short. You can't have things to remember that are like 11, 12, 15 words. It's better if it's 3 or less. So the phrase, people are different, is the most surefire way to be truly empathetic. They say empathy is like putting yourself in the other person's shoes, but I actually think that type of empathy is impossible, because you couldn't possibly begin to understand how profoundly different another human being could be. I actually just sent an email about this out to my list, or actually, no, it's about to go out. Spoiler alert. And, the story I talk about is one of my closest friends is a woman in her 40s with 2 teenage daughters who grew up in a different country, who's been married for over 20 years. Okay. I am a 30-year-old single man with no kids who was born here with completely different parents, obviously. How could I possibly really understand what it's like to live life through her experience? You can't. And the more I think about that little phrase, people are different, the more compassionate it's made me. The more I recognize that, there isn't a one-size-fits-all answer for anything, including fitness. So if you just really, and it's not like people are different isn't something I want you to just hear and be like, oh yeah, people are different. It's something I want you to think about a little bit. Think about how different. I'm completely different than my younger brother, and we have the same parents. Totally different experiences. And when you realize that everyone else is living such a unique experience that's the result of every decision they've ever made, along with some random selection of the DNA from their parents, it really helps you appreciate how not only you have to be more compassionate. You'll never understand what it's like for another person, but you can be compassionate and understand that you don't understand. I think that's real empathy. Just understand that I have no idea what it's like to be a 40-year-old woman with 2 daughters in high school. You know what I mean? Like, I have no clue. I have no clue what that's like. But I think it's also important because it helps me realize that I am an N of 1 experiment.
Right.
There's no one else just like me. It's just like the peanut allergy. You know what I found? Sourdough bread, I can eat like a loaf a day, have no problem. If I eat like regular bread, if I have a bunch, I feel kind of bloated and my nose gets stuffy. I just know that about myself now. But I mean, I have like fried chicken with a fried egg on a sourdough bread sandwich. Oh my God, it's amazing. No problems. But if I have like a junk burger with a junk bun, it makes me feel like garbage. So, I mean, understanding that people are different and then using that understanding to know yourself a little bit better and to understand other people a little bit better, I think that's how you become a better person.
I think that's tremendous advice. Empathy.
Thanks.
And I mean, everyone's dealing, like, I mean, everything that you just talked about, from fitness and nutrition to what everyone could be facing on a daily basis, is it's so easy to get going back to your we're sample size of 1, you know, like, and for most of us, we really mainly only consider ourselves throughout the day anyway. You know, just
True.
It's kind of human nature, unfortunately. But if we could practice that a little bit more and more each day, I do think that would make us better.
Yeah.
All right, man. What is I'm sure a lot of people are going to be interested. So what is the best place for people to learn more about you and what you're doing?
Man, so my website, maxshank.com, has basically everything. If you're interested in some of the products, they have all the products up there. When's this going to air? I could probably give them like a little discount.
So next week. So you'd have a couple days to set that up if you could.
Oh, we could definitely do that. Let's see. How about I just make the coupon code be EO3?
Okay. The number?
Okay.
EO3.
Yeah, EO number 3
All right.
will be the code. All lowercase, EO number 3. And then I'll give you guys a discount. I don't know if it'll be like 25%. Maybe it'll be more. Maybe it'll be like 50%. I don't know. I really had a great time today. So we'll definitely get that going. maxshank.com. And I have a few spots left for my Costa Rica retreat, which I'm pretty excited about. So if any of you really want to take things to the next level, I rented out a resort in Costa Rica for 4 days. So that's going to be awesome.
So tell me a little bit more about this event.
Oh man, well, it's something that we've been planning for about 1.5 years, and it's something that I've wanted to do for a long time, but I was kind of afraid to pull the trigger on it because, you know, when you put down a deposit to rent out an entire resort in another country, it's a little bit scary. You're like, fuck, I hope people are going to show up to this thing.
Yeah.
Right? But it's going to go through everything I wish I knew when I was a kid 10 years ago. It's going to go through a body rediscovery process, which I think is going to be really important. We're going to learn about the human body in a very practical way. I'm going to teach everybody how to do a much better job doing their own soft tissue release, for example. We're going to go through all kinds of athleticism, building movements. It's in the jungle in Costa Rica, which is really cool. There's this great like fitness facility. So basically, the truth is we're just going to learn everything about the human body. We're going to learn about breathing techniques and meditation. We're going to learn about drumming and rhythm and coordination and some dance and yoga type movements as well. Being less fragile, mental toughness. We're going to talk about habit formation. And I think a lot of the people interested will, one of the things we're going to do afterward is offer a little bit of like business and coaching help after the course as well. the truth is, Jerred, I'm just so fired up about this course. It's just going to be really awesome. And that'll be in February. If you're free, you should come out.
Yeah, that's
Love to have you.
That sounds awesome. Yeah, man. I'll look into it for sure. So it's a combination of like, is it you just mentioned business and stuff? Is it geared more towards coaches and stuff?
No, definitely not. It's pretty much geared toward anybody who really wants to improve their understanding of the human body. There are a lot of coaches signed up, but I think that's more just a case of who's typically willing to invest into their physical education. You know, unfortunately, a lot of people who aren't in the profession just don't see the value in improving their understanding and functionality of their own bodies.
Yeah, man.
So we end up with a lot of professionals.
That's actually, as soon as I said it, that's what I was thinking. I was like, that's probably the reason. Because I think, to be honest, I have probably spent more on events like that and going to things like that, whether for fitness or business or whatever it is. I probably spent more out of my own pocket doing those kind of things than I did getting my degree in college. You know, like just having gone to so many of those things, like it's just it adds up so much, but it's so worth it. And
oh my God, yeah, I've spent close to $200,000 outside of university educating myself about the human body.
Exactly, and yeah.
And that doesn't even count the amount I've spent traveling all over the world teaching other people about the human body. I mean, I've been to like Italy, Australia, Ireland. I mean, I've been to so many places teaching this stuff. And, you know, I'm really lucky because not many people find what they were meant to do, find like a strong mission. And I'm just really lucky that I found something early that I'm willing to put my full energy into. And I wish that for everybody, basically, that they find something that they just love so much, they will dedicate their life to it because it's really rewarding.
You know, I think this will be the last point before I kind of close it out, but just you're kind of talking about following your passion, doing something you love. And to be honest, I thought that was like newer information. I mean, not like brand new, but I felt like, I don't know, if it was a younger mindset, like I'm not going to go work for the man, like I'm going to do my own thing. But I'm reading books now from like, whether it's a Benjamin Franklin biography or books that, you know, were published in 1937 on mindset and stuff. And they're talking about, you know, one of their major points is like, just make sure that whatever you do in life, it's something that you love and you're super passionate about. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Where did this get lost? You know, how did it?
Totally.
How did this get lost in human history? It's just,
well, and just replace life with fitness, and it's the same thing. Like I have this crazy idea. So I told you I care mostly about being and helping other people become unbreakable muscular ninjas. Like that's what I care about. Oh my God, I just totally lost my train of thought. But that is pretty much all I'm interested in doing, because that gives you the foundation to stick with whatever it is you want to do else.
It's awesome, man. All right. Yeah. For everyone listening, go to maxshank.com. We will link to it in the show notes along with the discount code EO3. You can go check out that stuff. Well, Max, it's been a blast having you on the podcast, man. I really, really appreciate it.
Hey, I had a great time. I would love to come back and even just hop on the phone with you another time. I had a great time.
We will definitely do that, man.
All right.
your best. Losers always whine about their best.